So, ladies and gentlemen, good morning. Do you hear me back here? Yeah, yes. That's good. So, welcome once again in name of CAS, University of Rijeka, and the University of Rijeka. I just arrived from Vienna, and it took me almost 6 hours actually. A lot of reconstruction work on the road, a huge distance between two member states, between cities of two member states. And as we moved from Rijeka, and Rabbi Barušić was pointing at the broader region, as we moved from Rijeka away towards Bosnia, towards Serbia, towards Montenegro, Kosovo, we probably even need space shuttles to arrive in, let's say, Pristina in 1 day time from Rijeka, which is just 500-600 kilometers from here. So we have huge distances in Europe, and at the same time we have a huge challenge how to overcome the distances and how to not only make bridges between the region and Europe, but how to make bridges between different visions of Europe and between different Europes. And I hope that we are then going to have a chance to speak about different perspectives on Europe, and allow me to make an assumption at the beginning on that we do have different Europes right now, and that the only way to bridge those different Europes is, as we want to put it in the conference, bridging by knowledge and bridging by deepening knowledge. So as you know, usually at the beginning of the conference we have to make at least 1 or 2 technical remarks. So the first one is we are pretty proud to have an interesting booklet about Center for Advanced Studies in your bags. Please take a look at it. We don't have only nice pictures in it. We have the vision of Center for Advanced Studies explained in the booklet. And if I may put it just in 2 sentences, what Center for Advanced Studies is for this particular region here, this is a kind of, once again, attempt to bridge countries of the region, to connect them to the European normalness, the global normalness when it comes to intellectual research, when it comes to science. And we do believe that by spreading knowledge, by inviting scholars, by exchanging scholars and knowledge with Europe, with global world, what we are actually going to do and what we have been doing since 2 years, is the only way to create something what we called European normalness or Europeanness in this particular region. Even in Croatia, despite the membership in the European Union, we sometimes don't have a feeling that the European normalness has come to this particular country and more of it to the region. So in any sense, you have the booklet, and we will have the opportunity during the next 2 years, 2 days actually, to discuss the vision of Center for Advanced Studies once again. And then we have a second technical remark. In the bag we have a draft of a memorandum of possible conclusions of the conference. It is probably unusual to have a draft about conclusions even before we have discussed the topics that we want to discuss, but what we actually wanted to do in order to be as practical as possible, to make a first draft, to mention the challenges that we have in Europe, to mention the vision that we have, and to mention, or actually to lay ground for a discussion about the foundation of the interdisciplinary master for European integration, European affairs in Rijeka. We will discuss it tomorrow during the different sessions, and then we hope to be able to adopt a common agenda, and actually by doing so, agenda for the common path towards bringing this European normalness here to the region, organizing it. This is quite important, organizing the knowledge about European normalness here, not only in Rijeka, but in the whole region. So, by having said that, I would stop here with technical remarks, and would like to invite my distinguished panel to join me here in this wonderful room. And as we have the sun only today, this is probably going to be the most sunniest panel that we are going to have in the next 2 days. So in any case, I feel privileged and honored to invite Professor Joseph Weiler to join me here at the panel. Welcome to Rijeka. We are happy to have you here. Then Paolo Marianotti, he is here with us. This is good. Welcome once again. Good morning. Otherwise, we have to invite you once again to join us here. Thank you so much for organizing and supporting Rijeka and Center for Advanced Studies in this endeavor. And then, last but not least, Snezhna Prijić-Samarzhija, Vice Rector of the University of Rijeka and Co-Director of Center for Advanced Studies. So my mic is constantly falling down, which is probably not supposed to be any kind of bad sign for the conference. So I'll take it in my hands. So I'll just make one sentence about each of my distinguished panelists, then make one final remark about Europe, and then we will go on to presentations focusing on, as the title of the first panel is entitled, New Challenges for Europe in a Changing World. So we have here once again Professor Weiler Joseph, Joseph Strauss Professor of Law and European Union, and Jean Monnet Chair at the York University, and then President of the European University Institute in Florence, which is in a sense an example how a research and knowledge about Europe can be organized in a perfect, almost perfect way. And I just recently, 2 days ago, had an excellent discussion about Europe with a good colleague of mine who finished PhD in Florence just recently, 2 months ago, and she was impressed, and she gave me a lot of ideas how to do something similar in Rijeka and in the region. Thank you so much. We appreciate your presence here. Then Paolo Marianotti, probably I'm not pronouncing your name.
Like Bologna.
Like Bologna, okay, Marianotti. Thank you so much. He is president of the Executive Committee, the Association of European Journalists, and he is going to tackle one particularly important issues in times like this, which is actually the question of media. How do the media spread a picture of Europe, and how important are media in the context of debating challenges in Europe, and we have many of them. However, I was introduced, once again, Assistant Minister for Foreign and European Affairs of the Republic of Croatia, and then Snezhna Prijić-Samarzhija, my dear friend, Co-Director of Center for Advanced Studies and Vice Rector of the University in Rijeka. So, just to set the stage, 2 sentences. Europe, you know, some of us being outside of the room, might argue that this is a kind of a diffuse term. We know what European Union is, but we don't know where Europe ends and what belongs to Europe. We might argue that there are different narratives about Europe, that there are different interpretations regarding the past of the Europe and regarding the future challenges of Europe. We might even argue that some parts of Europe don't really share the set of values that are defined as European values. And we might even argue that Europe right now is a divided continent. We do have right now challenges facing European Union, facing Europe, which are actually, we can put them as a kind of, let's say, not fight, but competition between one vision of Europe, which is democratic, which is a vision of open society, which is a vision of societies based on knowledge, and another vision of Europe, which is more or less authoritarian, which is more or less directed towards authoritarian values, and which is openly challenging the vision of Europe and the Europe as a peace project. In any sense, we have 2014 is probably a good time to discuss the future of Europe, simply because, in times of crisis, we do know that many of us are complaining, and crisis is difficult, and we have to overcome it. But in a sense, crisis might be, and from my point of view, is in this particular moment probably a window of opportunity to rethink Europe, to rethink institutional setup of the European Union, to rethink or revitalize the process of European enlargement, where Europe can prove that this is still functional, to rethink our core values, democratic values, and to once again think about how to make a fundament of Europe based on a shared knowledge and shared values. So having said that, I would like to hand over to Joseph Weilhaupt. He is going to address us with a presentation entitled Sleepwalking Again, Europe and the End of the Pax Americana, 1914-2014. So we are eager to hear your thoughts on this very, very important question. Thank you once again for coming to Rijeka and working with us.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much for inviting me. It's an honor and a pleasure. I'm actually a member of the little house in Florida, which my children call it paradise. We spend most of our summers there. So it's not
It's a home coming.
almost. I also want to say something about organizing this event here with the involvement of Serbia and Croatia. Joining the European Union is a process of ratification. There's no negotiation. The European Union, with its new member states, sets a list of requirements, and the new member states have to prove that they comply with all these requirements. They called it negotiation, but it was really just a dictate. Either you accept or you don't come in. And I think there's also an intellectual spillover to that process, that academic communities in the not so new member states have a tendency that they feel they have to catch up and to absorb all this knowledge and theorizing and integration studies and European studies, and sometimes prove that they're better at it than the people who have been doing it for decades. And what I very often notice from my vantage point, and my vantage point is not just currently being the president of the European University Institute, but the editor-in-chief of two journals which get an awful lot of submissions on European issues, the European Journal of International Law and ICON, the International Journal of Constitutional Law. And what I notice is that what one would have hoped for is that there would be really distinct voices that come from these areas and these regions with different experiences and different perspectives and very different recent histories. And instead, usually what I get in these submissions is if I just blind read it and not know where it was coming, it could be written from somebody in France or in Germany or in Italy or in the United Kingdom. So I don't think there's enough of a distinct voice, a distinct point of view. And it's a kind of spillover, as I said, from this process of negotiation. I might be wrong, but that's my impression. Now, my topic touches on security. So the policy issue, the area that interests me this morning, and certainly if it's about new challenges to Europe, it fits very well into that. And of course I take Sleepwalking Again is from the book that's become famous by Christopher Clark. It's a wonderful book. It's a professional historian writing for a general public, not just for fellow historians. And there's something about the epistemology of sleepwalking, that trope, because you read the book and you step by step, he shows you all the moves that when you read it 100 years later, you ask yourself, how could they not see the catastrophe that was about to happen? And what is interesting, and it's also important for my thesis, that's why I'm borrowing from him and saying sleepwalking again, that these are not cataclysmic events that he described. There's an event here, and an event there, and an event there, and an event there. And it all pulls together. And of course, it was a terrible catastrophe. The only reason we don't think of the First World War in such catastrophic terms because it was dwarfed by the Second World War, for which it was one of the precursors and also one of the catalysts, but it was really a cataclysmic thing. But what is interesting about this epistemology or historiography of sleepwalking, it's exactly that, sleepwalking. So had Christopher Clark written all of this in 1913, more or less the same thing, he probably wouldn't find a publisher, because people would say, you are sleepwalking, you are dreaming, this is nonsense what you are saying. How could you imagine that a year from now, when an unimportant archduke in an unimportant place, excuse me, got shot, and then this whole conflagration just erupted. So it doesn't pass sort of Popper's, it's not real science, it's sort of an act of imagination, the sleepwalking, because it's only with hindsight that you can say, wow, they were sleepwalking. And I say this in self-defense because I think that it's very possible that we are sleepwalking and that we are not exactly in the same situation, but that the dangers are huge, but if one and when one presents them, the reaction is either you're a Cold War monger or the same reaction that Christopher Clark would have had he presented his thesis in 1913 instead of in 2013. Now, it's a long paper and I'm happy to distribute a written version that you can look at it later. But I will present the basic thesis now in summary. So, my view is that since the end of the Second World War, Europe has not had a security policy. It has not had its own security policy. And it's not only that it hasn't had a security policy, it doesn't have a security capacity. Europe 2014, its security capacity is risible, is laughable. It's not only that it could not defend itself to any serious threat to its collective security on its own. Even when it wants to vindicate its values, and again, this is a little bit touchy when it comes to this region, but at least the World Court qualified what happened in Bosnia as genocide. And Europe decided, for good or for bad, for good reasons or bad reasons, that they had to take action to prevent something similar happening in Kosovo. Now, I don't want to go into the merits, whether it was a wise decision or not wise decision, a justified decision. They took that decision. And then their total impotence became visible. I looked at the numbers that NATO produced. So the Italians produced an airfield. That was the contribution of Italy to prevent what Europe decided was the threat of at least a humanitarian disaster, if not a genocide in Kosovo. And then in terms of actual use of arms, the French and the British joined the Americans. So the French flew something in the region of 300 sorties. And the British did a little bit better. They flew something in the region of 800 sorties. And the Americans flew 20,000 sorties. And that gives you an order of magnitude of the European security capacity. Let's take a more recent example. The action in Libya. Again, I don't want to go into the merits, whether it was a good action, a bad action, a justified action, a non-justified action, whether it made sense from a foreign policy point of view. That's off the table. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm just saying, Europe decided it would participate in Libya and try to bring down Gaddafi, etc. And we can think today that it was as stupid maybe as the American intervention in Iraq was, but that's not the issue. I'm talking about its capacity. So it just turns out that they could not do it on their own. It's not only that they could not sustain 3 weeks of an air campaign without logistical support from the United States. They simply wouldn't have been able to do it. They didn't have the targeting capacity. So if the United States didn't come in to actually set up the targets, what has to be, right or wrong, a different issue, to be bombed, Europe would just not be able to do anything. So the truth of the matter is that the European security effort, the European self-understanding of its security position, has all been under the shadow of the Pax Americana. And if I look to the most fundamental, primitive basis of European security thinking in the last 60 years, it comes down, in my view, to 3 propositions. Number one, if things really get bad, the American cavalry will come and save us, as they've done twice before. So it creates a security moral hazard, because we don't really have to take care of our own security, because the Americans, in their wisdom or in their folly, will do it for us, both in treasure and in blood. Number two, to the extent that we have to think about security and foreign policy, not in terms of trade, but foreign what we used to call once high politics, even when we have the High Representative and what used to be called European Political Cooperation and now the Common Action, etc., I saw how the wonderful, and she really is wonderful, Ms. Mogherini, when she was appointed as the High Representative, there was something very telling in the way she was presented. She's a tremendously able person, so every word that was said was correct. And she said she would very ably defend the European interest in world affairs. And that is exactly the European position, that European security and foreign policy is about defending the European interest in world affairs, but a world shaped by others. It's not that Europe will play a major role in shaping the world in which it is, but a world shaped by others, in the past by the Soviets and the Americans, maybe today the Chinese and the Americans, etc. In a world shaped by others, Europe has to make sure to take care that its interest, its security interest, its foreign interest will take place. Now, the third foundation is more profound because it goes to the real psyche of European society. If we go back to the Schuman Declaration, there was a lot of hyperbole in the Schuman Declaration, about destiny, etc. It's a messianic document. But probably the gold medal in hyperbole in the Schuman Declaration was the statement that by creating the European coal and steel community, war will not only become impossible, but unthinkable. And when one read that statement, even at the time, it seemed hyperbole. War would not become impossible because within 10 years of the end of the Second World War, Germany had the strongest army in Europe because she was a frontline state with the Soviet Union during the Cold War, and her military capacity was stronger than that of France. And how can anybody talk about war being unthinkable? But in fact, that was one of the greatest successes of the Monet vision, and one of the greatest successes, maybe in my book, the greatest success of the European integration project was to take that statement, war will not only become impossible but unthinkable, and turn it into a very, very deep reality. It's exactly that. So, of course, it is just laughable to imagine that France and Germany, or Germany and Italy, or even though they have some tensions, would even dream or think of resolving their disputes by use of force. And we should not laugh at this achievement. It looks laughable, and that's the sign of the great achievement. This is the longest period in contemporary history that there's no war between Germany and France. But even more important, it really has become unthinkable. It's just not a proposition that comes to anybody's mind. I remember in the referendum debate on the Maastricht Treaty, where it was not so sure that the French electorate would vote for it. So Helmut Kohl and François Mitterrand appeared on French television. And they talked about the need to consolidate the historical reconciliation between France and Germany. And 65% of the viewers didn't know what they were talking about, because the success of European integration was so profound. And you know that the referendum on the Maastricht Treaty only passed by 20,000 votes. If 20,000 votes would have voted no, it would have fallen. But I want to say, and this is contestable and contested and maybe a little bit controversial, that there's a dark side to that wonderful, noble success. Because in the West European mind, war really is unthinkable. It's not just that war between France and Germany is unthinkable. The very idea of war, that rational states can resolve their disputes by going to war, is not part of the mental equipment of Europeans today, or at least West Europeans today. We don't call what's happening in the Ukraine war, we call it a crisis. Because how can one think about war? And I think you will see in a minute that when I come back to it, this huge success, and it's nothing but a success, it has some deep implications when thinking about the future security of Europe. So the thesis is that there really is no capacity, that the foundation of European security is totally dependent on the Pax Americana. That NATO is tremendously important, but in a way it's an alibi for the Europeans doing very little. Because NATO is 80% United States and 20%. And the second, or the third step in my thesis is that the Pax Americana is over. And I will try and explain why I say that. That these things don't happen overnight. But 2014 is a good year to demonstrate that the Pax Americana is over. And not as a transient thing, you know, some kind of American retrenchment like after Vietnam. But in a deep structural sense, the Pax Americana is over. So that foundational basis of European security thinking is gone, is no more. And therefore there's a vacuum, there's a security vacuum. Now, I'm going to fast forward because of time. The danger when I say that the Pax Americana is over and I talk about sleepwalking is not that suddenly Russia will attack Poland and America will not send the cavalry. Although you know the Poles themselves doubt very much if America would live up to that kind of defense commitment. I'm not saying if they will or will not. I'm just saying the fact that the Poles themselves call it into doubt is in and of itself an interesting sign. But that's not the risk. The risk is not the cataclysmic event that they will attack, I don't know, the Russians will attack Poland and America will not be there to defend them, which is the basis of European security. It's different. It's the salami problem. For reasons which I'll explain, American global authority is not what it used to be. So states are willing to do things that before, or not only states, states and other international actors are willing to do things that they might not have done when American global authority was at its height, during the Cold War and maybe 10 years after the end of the Cold War. So there's a slice here, I don't know, in Georgia, and a slice there in the Crimea, and a slice there in the South China Sea, and another slice there. Every slice is a challenge to the stable security order. But it's not sufficiently menacing to justify a real use of force, to kind of trigger NATO or the cavalry, etc. And you know, there are many slices, we see them happening in Iran, in Asia, in Europe itself, etc. And that's why I found Christopher Clark so evocative. Because one slice, another slice, another slice, another slice, another slice, and then even half a slice suddenly triggers. The cumulative effect just becomes untenable, and then one finds oneself in a catastrophic security situation which one had not anticipated, because it was not the kind of build-up that we, two superpowers threatening each other with thousands of missiles, and for which we are not prepared, and certainly in Europe we are not prepared. So that's my overall thesis. Now, if I have time, I can explain and illustrate the demise of the Pax Americana, but you might think that I've already spoken enough, and I stop here.
What I would suggest is, if you are okay with that we share the text paper, which is probably elaborating on all those issues in detail, that we share it with you in the afternoon, as soon as we have a free spot, so that you can read it, and that we can catch up on those issues tomorrow when we sum up. because I do believe that this is actually the fact, your thesis that the Pax Americana is going down, is radically changing the perspective that we have on Europe, and by the way, then European studies or whatsoever. So I will simply just to proceed, in order to proceed, say, let's share the text, let's have a debate tomorrow once again and see what the consequences we face when we accept the thesis that the Pax Americana is going down. Even the Americans would say, no, they would actually argue, the Republicans at least, that we have to restore the Pax Americana once again, but we do see that America is probably also sleepwalking as Europe is. So in any sense, thank you so much for it now, and we will come back to your important starting point, which has managed to wake us up here in the morning in Rijeka. We will continue with media and the European public space. I mean, we do know that the European public space is somehow a contested issue. Do we have it? What is it? Where are the borders? And what role do the media play? I mean, we could even try to connect the first presentation, the second one, by asking actually how the media are dealing with Pax Americana and security challenges. But in any case, we are happy to have you here, Paolo Magnotti, and until the end of the conference, I will probably be perfect in Italian. So, the floor is yours. Welcome once again.
Thank you very much. Good morning to everybody. I would like to thank the Ministry for Foreign and European Affairs for inviting me, and a special thanks to Assistant Minister Mr. Marzus, who is the engine of all this initiative. I remember that he organized a very important meeting with journalists in several parts of the country in order to involve them and to help them to communicate Europe. I really thank Professor Weiler for putting our attention the book from Clark, which is really very, very topical now. We need to consider really in a very concrete way. I will make a presentation taking into consideration information, communication related to the European public space, but also in general terms, considering that today we talk about an open journalism with what is going on with internet and so on. And then I will end up with some concrete proposal regarding the master, which should be one of the products of our conference. Talking about media, information, communication, we need to consider, first of all, a very important action. Information is a precondition of participation. And in all the times, we consider participation in the democratic system very, very important. It was, it has been, and it will be. We know that the turnout and the political success of parties in the European elections that are supporting, that are claiming, that are hoping that the European project will have a titanic end, it is of course something worrying for us. Of course, not just the lack of information or the responsibility, not just the gap between institution and citizen, but the other element. Anyway, we need to do our best in order to fill the gap that we still have between European institutions and civil society and citizens. To this regard, I think that sometimes the European institutions decided to take steps in order to fill this gap. Unfortunately, we need to say that the member states were not so very active in doing it. Sometimes, in general terms, I would say that the member state shifted the responsibility to the European Union, and it was not correct. Just to mention some important events that happened in the European integration process regarding the initiative to fill this gap. We remember in 1984 there was a very important European Council in Fontainebleau in French, and the European institution realized that there was a really great deficit, democratic deficit, and they decided to promote the so-called Europe of Citizens program with the Adonino Committee. It was, of course, the beginning of a new 10 years area, a golden area for the European integration process, where there was the appointment of Delors, President of the European Commission, and then together with Mitterrand and Kohl, these 10 years, 1985 1995 was really a golden age for the European Union. But we need to see that the European institutions are forced to promote something when they realize that something really very, very wrong. But they are not, they did not take into consideration the necessity to prevent something that was going to happen. We know that another fact was when we had the failure of the constitutional treaty, of the European constitutional treaty. The European institutions realized that it was necessary to do something. They began the so-called period of reflection. Maybe it was better to reflect a little more before, because we are electing and paying politicians also to think what is happening, yes? And then it was a period when the European institutions, mainly the Commission, promoting many initiatives. The most important was the communication strategy for the European Union and the Plan D, democracy, debate and discussion. And then we need to consider that the member states, as I told you before, were not so active in doing it. Sometimes there still is a blame game between institutions, European institutions and member states, and blame game between institutions and the media. Thinking that media has a responsibility to the result, but I really ensure that media has a responsibility, because we don't have many media people, many journalists who are very well prepared and motivated to inform better about the European institutions. They are more concentrated on local affairs, national affairs. They are more interested sometimes about the dog or the friend of the politicians than on political aspects regarding the European integration, which is affecting our daily life. We consider to this regard that there was an important document, in my opinion, issued by the European Commission, what is Communicated European Partnership. What does it mean? Communicated European Partnership means that all the institutional levels, from the European institution to member states, to regions, to municipalities, have the responsibility to inform and to involve people in the European integration process. And of course, the civil society. But the civil society must be motivated, must be informed by persons, by people who have the capacity to do it. Okay. Of course, now we are in a quite new situation. We are, of course, in a changing world, as the title of the conference is underlining, a situation where things are changing overnight, and of course we need to take into consideration that we are living in a very highly interdependent and globalized world. And in doing this, I think that media people should be more aware of this changing world and not just concentrating on national interests, national affairs and regional affairs. We are in the middle practice of a new epoch making information and communication technology, and we need to consider it in a very concrete way. That light on the field of international relations, which do not have a kind of essential assistance in the real world, the sort of that could define an academic aspect, we need to be aware of the continual interplay between the real world and the world of knowledge. I am very happy that this conference is underlining, as Assistant Minister did before, the knowledge is of course the most important aspect, with the need to act accordingly. Likewise, we need to be aware that in the future, whereas neo-functionalism, as it was before, will lead the steps of the European integration at a higher speed, functionalism takes us to create the creation of a new world order, leaving the sovereign state, national state, on the back seat. I think that it is an irreversible process. We have two aspects, two several systems of education. We have regarding Europe, we have journalists who are permanently in Brussels, accredited in Brussels, at the European institution. There are more than 1,000, and of course they constitute the so-called strong European public sphere because they have easy access to the European institution. They can have easy access to the members of the Commission, to the politicians. We have, on the other way, what we call the weak public space, represented by journalists who are working in the region, on the regional level, in the municipality, and so on. And they don't have the possibility to have direct contact with the European institutions. But today, with the information that we have on internet, we can, of course, get all the information that we need to inform about the European project. And I underlined the importance of regional and local communication. I began in May 1983 a weekly television program. It is still going on, and I think that it is a real way, because in the regions we have all the press who have their regional paper, the regional television. Therefore, it is very, very important to concentrate a lot of the information on the regional, of course, not avoiding the national information, but local and regional information is very, very, very important. Of course, we need to be aware that today we need to change our mindset to information, and we have not just to inform people, we have not just to talk at people, but we need to speak with people, so that journalists should be a little more considerate and more, needs to be a little more humble, and to think that it is not just necessary for journalists to inform people. They need to create a condition so that people can express their opinion, can express themselves. I told yesterday with Mr. Marusic that sometimes we have many journalists, they are thinking that they are the only brain to tell everything to everybody. We think sometimes that the editorial article are something like a gospel, like to tell everything for the politician, for everybody. We need to create the conditions so that people can express themselves, and we need to be aware that grassroots intelligence is very important. We have in the civil society a lot of people who can suggest us what to do and give also ideas. Therefore, not just to talk to people, but to speak with people. It is the main way that we need to go. Well, now we need to consider this, as I told you before, the open journalism. Open journalism means practically to change the situation. I really think that journalists who think to work in the traditional way are going to become soon a dinosaur. Therefore, it is necessary really to change our mindset and to involve more, to use more all this situation. We have to change the system as, for example, regarding the public sphere, we have, for example, the representative on freedom of the media of the Organization for Security and Cooperation in Europe, who underlines this importance, who is organizing many events in order to promote this change of the mindset. And recently, she's a lady from Montenegro, underlined, media, you need to improve media and internet literacy. Literacy in order for the public to have a better understanding of the new environment and to enable the critical access whether the information is coming from. However, while technology changes our mind, of course, journalists and the media are irreversible changes. Our basic human rights remain the same, of course, we need to consider. So I think that journalists should be aware that 70 or more than 70% of our daily life refer to rules that are coming from the European Union. And in many cases now, unfortunately, we have seen in the European elections, when we have problems, I refer also to the Italian case, we say that the responsibility of the European Union, what is the responsibility of the European Union if you are full of that? It is, and of course, if a minister or prime minister is blaming, is telling that the responsibility of the European Union, what can think electors? We have treaties and we need to respect the treaty, because the treaties were not made just by few people. The treaties were made by the minister, they were approved or ratified by the parliament, therefore everybody knew. We knew since February 7th, 1992, that we are going to have monetary union, we are going to have euro, and it was necessary to respect parameters. It is not something that happened yesterday. But I think the information, communication must be more responsible on this. Now, regarding the European public space, we know that this aspect became very topical in the 90s, mainly after the very famous debate that was taking place in 1995 between Jürgen Habermas and Dieter Grimm about the legitimation of the European institution and about the constitutionalization of the European system. The debate opened, the discussion opened a great debate which is still going on. What is, in few words, the public space? The public space is an area in social life where individuals can come together to freely discuss and identify social problems, and through that discussion influence political action. Important is that people are informed and then they need to be put in the condition to have ownership over the European project. It is of course of most important. According to the European Commission, we have European public sphere where citizens are given the information and the tools to actively participate in the decision-making process and gain ownership of the European project. Public communication theory stresses the central importance of links and interaction between institutions, the media and civil society for the enhancement of dialogue structures of communication between different social actors in the given territory, and thus for the empowerment of citizens and the development of a sense of democratic ownership of the European Union. In addressing the main issues, particular relevance has three elements. One, the function of public communication in promoting institutional activity. Secondly, the media's role in promoting a European debate. Thirdly, the implication of processes of inclusion in the public sphere. We need to underline inclusion in the public sphere. Regarding the role of institutions, media and civil society in the European public sphere, we need to answer a number of questions. Firstly, how are European political institutions trying to inform citizens about European Union-related matters? Under what conditions is the process of Europeanization of the public sphere evolving? To what extent are citizens able to enter the debate on the European policy and politics? I would like to make a distinction between policies and politics. Okay, I need to say that. Okay, therefore we need to underline the necessity to prepare media people in order to create the conditions for citizens to participate in the European public sphere. As we know, now we need to consider, I would like to make a connection between the world of information and about what can be done, should be done in order to help to prepare the master that we should have as product of this conference. Of course, we know that we need to be aware that we need to prepare today young leaders that will shape the future. That will shape the future. And in shaping the future, let me say something. Now we have politicians that are saying that to shape the future of the young generation, you need to be just young. I think that de Gasperi, Adenauer, Schuman were not very young, and they were not thinking just for the retirement. They were thinking for the future of our generation. To think they don't, okay, we don't need to be prime minister or minister in order to shape the future. Young leaders can be other expression in order to help to shape our future. Regarding the master that we're talking about, we can imagine the structure of our society in segment of pyramid. We have the pyramid with some force, we have at the basis, we have a lot of good people, and at the bottom, or at the top of the pyramid, we have wealthy people. Therefore, we need to consider the necessity to prepare people. I was last week in Geneva attending the World Investment Forum. I was not to invest because I have nothing to invest, but I was just to listen, to learn, and to know people. And they underline the necessity that today, with the school, we need to prepare people who are really enabled to help, to do something, to create new, better conditions in the poor reality. Because we have many business schools, they are going to Harvard, and after finishing, they are thinking to make something, to make business in the world where we have a lot of money. But we need to think to prepare people for the regions, for the situation where people are not so wealthy. Okay, therefore I come to the conclusion with some concrete proposal. If, of course, we need to consider that today regarding communication and regarding the possibility offered by the new information and communication technology, we need a strong interaction between media people, between teachers, between professors in the university, and between students. Three subjects that need to interact in a very strong way with grassroots intelligence, with the civil society. I would say that considering the interdisciplinarity of a master, we can consider four main aspects that we all know. First of all, to design the design of the curricula and courses in an interdisciplinary fashion involving academic staff and research staff from different departments. Teaching impulse made by academic staff from different departments. Assessment structure, key studies, and all of that reflecting the interdisciplinarity so that the subject can be approached from different perspectives. Fourth, very important, students from across different faculties and departments can study together in an interdisciplinary fashion so that they can study from each other. But I want to underline a 5 point, which in my opinion is very important. We need to consider input from grassroots intelligence and civil society stakeholders. Therefore, we need to create a system so that we need to overcome, I think, the seminar and to have webinar, so that we need to involve in making our meeting. We need to have somebody being all the time at the computer, in front of the computer screen, to see what is going on and to involve also civil society in a new way. It is, of course, a new mindset that we need to change. With the new technology, it is easy to be in contact with citizens having different interests and that can express what they need. We have not to be concerned to think that we know everything, what societies need. We need to have the possibility to be in contact with the civil society, with the grassroots intelligence, to ask them what they need, The general terms, okay. Then we need to do something more to promote a distribution of our products. In the university, we are studying, but sometimes we are making research. They end up in a nice book. We present the book is pointed to the shelf, and everything is finished. And then maybe we put the name of the book in our CV. We use our CV for our career, but not the CV. We need to have a better dissemination of our products, And we need to have more people which are prosumers, and we say, producers and consumers of the web. Let me try to. Sorry. Well, summing up, I dare to propose some core and conclusory models for a seminar, combining what I said before regarding the information, the communication system, and what are the needs. International, I think that a master in this situation should consider also, importantly, economic aspect. And then I would say that we need a model regarding international human resources and management, and then technology and innovation management. The first, regarding international human resources management, the first one leading to learn how to get the best of our people network and communities within and outside organization building skills. The second one designed to learn how relevant law and high technologies are mixed with human, financial and social capitals to create new services and products and novel forms of organization. Taking into consideration the many programs supported by the European Union in the framework of the cohesion policy and to create growth and jobs, another core model could be considered. Public policy and European policy. Public policy could also be an elective model aiming to learn how public policy evolved to achieve social, economic and environmental objectives and how they interact with the wider business landscape. Anyway, I think that we need to do our best combining the information system, the communication system that we have now with our teaching. We need to prepare young people to be creative with a new mindset in comparison to the past. Young people not looking just for a job only, but motivated and enabled to create new jobs for themselves and others for personal and community benefit. Thank you.
So thank you so much. As we see, it is a multifaceted topic, many aspects, and many questions that we even didn't tackle in the presentation. I mean, we do in the region here. We have a kind of gap between communicating within the EU space and then communicating within the peripheries of European Union, which is here Western Balkans, which is neighborhood in eastern parts of Europe. And the question is really how to overcome the challenges to combine those different Europes in a communicative way. But in any sense, we will come back to it. So we will now go on with Hrvoje Marušić, focusing on the transformative power of European integration. I mean, Croatia is probably one of the most interesting examples how Europe and the conditionality of Europe can transform a country and make it a member state of the European Union 20 years after wars. Croatia, at the beginning of the 90s, was a war zone, and in 2014 it is member state of the European Union. And as we might argue that the transformative power and let's say the role model, the shining role model of the European Union was quite strong in the period where Croatia was heading towards the European Union. We might even then think about the farther region, consider the fact that the shining role model of the European Union is not that shining anymore. So then Hrvoje is going to focus on Croatia, the transformative power in the Croatian case, but we simply might keep in mind that, or how to revitalize this transformative power in order to be as efficient and as functional in the neighborhood in the Western Balkans as it was the case in Croatia. So, Hrvoje Marušić, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. I don't think that this microphone is too far away. No, it's fine. Vedran, you are absolutely right. Transformative power and the example of Europe is not so shining anymore, but it's still very strong. And I believe that it will become shining again, maybe not tomorrow, but in a short period anyhow. But first of all, I forgot to thank somebody in my opening speech. I will do this now, and these are the countries who have also supported this conference and have shown interest in the future activities, and especially I want to thank Norway, United Kingdom, France, Japan, Poland and Lithuania, and thank the excellencies for being here. I hope we will collaborate on this project in the future also. Actually, yes, I will concentrate on Croatia's example, how Croatia has changed prior to accession, at the moment of accession, during our first year of membership, and also maybe a reflection or two on the future changes which we will face for sure. But I'll start by remembering the questions, or rather the big question which I've heard the most on the morning or during the 1st of July 2013. This was the day of our accession, our first day of membership, and many people asked me, where is this big change of membership? And of course the reply was very obvious. The change didn't happen on the 1st of July. The change actually happened during all this long 20 years since our separation from Yugoslavia, and more intensively during the pre-accession negotiations and the last year before membership. And I believe Croatia has undergone all there is in terms of transformation, political system, economical system, but all this transformation was intensified for sure by the Euro integration process in Croatia. And this is the main message I would like to give immediately. So all the reforms we had to carry through anyhow to make our country a better place would have taken much longer. Nobody can say how much longer, but actually much longer if it wasn't for the negotiation process for our accession. This is a true fact. I believe, I'm convinced that Croatia, for this reason, is a better place. We are a living proof that the transformation power of European integration is huge. Unfortunately, the economic crisis, which affects the citizens in their daily lives, have somehow overshadowed these changes, which are mostly positive. So before membership, we had to change a lot to become a member state in the first place. Our legislative framework, our institutional setup, but also our approach to how things are to be done. What struck me that the moment we have started this Euro integration process, the focus of the political parties, therefore the internal political dialogue and agenda has shifted in a very short period from emotional issues, historical issues, to very pragmatic and therefore rational issues. And maybe this is in my view the biggest change which happens in a society when it starts with your integration process. During the pre-accession period, we also had to develop something which is not very developed in this part of the world, but also in other places too. And this is a culture of dialogue and inclusiveness. In order to be able to carry out these reforms, we needed to ensure a very deep, very broad, very comprehensive consensus, not only between political parties, but also all social stakeholders, NGOs, business society, academia. So we had to learn how to communicate, to be inclusive in forming our positions and to define our policies. I would also comment that after we have joined, this consensus have slightly decreased, is weakened, because after, maybe it's normal, after you achieve a very important goal, the tension goes down, and then you have to rebuild it after a while, but I believe this process is now again regaining momentum. After joining, we understood that actually nothing can prepare you fully to membership, to the intensity of membership. By intensity, I mean the volume, the dynamics, the complexity of European affairs. The last year after concluding negotiations, when we were allowed to finally sit at the decision-making table, was a great experience and has opened our eyes that we were prepared but not fully. We are still building our own skills within European Union as a member state, because we want to be an active and efficient member state, and to do this we have to first of all understand EU policies, know them very deeply and very well. We have to know how to articulate our national interests within these policies. We need to know how to integrate our national interests within the policies, the legislative acts of the Union. We therefore need to know what are the formal procedures, informal procedures to do so. We need to also change the approach to the partnership concept. In the old world, there were traditional partnerships. Now in the European Union, we understood that partnerships are created almost on a daily basis by looking at the agenda of next week's Coreper or Council meetings. You have to understand who are your partners, who is your opposition, but not generally, on certain topic. And in the end, it is important to be able to implement these policies efficiently. So all of this requires new skills, new knowledge. I will give you just one very trivial example of the changes we have passed. We need to be very fast in determining and presenting our national positions. So between having an insight in the draft of a legislative or political act of the Union and presenting or defining and presenting a position, we have 3 to 4 days, which was unimaginable in the old days. For many people, it's still unimaginable. But one very, very small thing, but very important thing, was the fight between us and the government's, central government's administration, the secretariat, because we needed new rules. We needed to be able to use draft documents in English. We needed to use email as an official communication. And we needed to have deadlines of 48 hours. And it took us 6 months to change these 3 little rules in the rules of procedure of the government administration. It's a small thing, but it's actually a revolution. These are trivial things, but without this, you cannot be an official member state. Then one change which has not been completed fully yet is the change of mentality between acceding country and the member state. The same people had the same roles for so many years, both in Croatia and in the European Commission institutions and in the member states. So, for almost 7 years we met as candidate country, acceding country, and member state or EU institutions. We were rather objects of policies and subject to monitoring and things like that. Today we are decision makers. We make these policies. Somebody referred, Paolo referred to 70% of, let's scroll down. Paolo referred to 70% of rules in our lives which are created within European policies, but we today are creators of these rules. We have to still fully accept this fact. So does the European, so do the European institutions, and so do the member states, some member states at least. In the end, in this moment, we still have to build our self-confidence to know that we actually can influence the decision-making in Europe, but we also have to establish ourselves as reliable partners in Europe by having clear positions, by being constructive in the discussions, in the creation process of decision-making, and most of all, in my view, for a small country, is about to be coherent. This is the biggest strength of a small country. Croatia has 7 votes in the council. These 7 votes do not count much, but actually, if you are a reliable and coherent partner, they actually can have an and last, in this moment, we were and remain a loud supporter of enlargement. We truly believe in the transformative power of Euro integration. Croatia, as I said, is an example of this. It simply fosters change from day one of the process, and therefore we propose to somehow enhance this enlargement process, which we see much more as a consolidation than enlargement of European Union. We simply believe that countries of Southeast Europe simply belong there. Europe is not complete without these countries. And last, but of course not least, the future. The future, I think that Europe is not sleepwalking anymore, but the awakening is really too slow. This is true. So we need kind of a Red Bull. I mean, not in terms of Russia Red Bull, sorry for this parallel, but the Red Bull, you know, the energy drink and the bucket of Red Bull to understand how much of change is ahead of us. I always say that Croatia could have joined in a more boring moment in history. So now we have a double challenge, both as a new member state and as a member state in a truly and deeply changing European Union. These changes, these challenges require at the same time a very detailed, deep, thorough analysis and a very swift action, which is not always easy to combine. We have also a huge opportunity, not only a challenge, to be able to be very active participants in creating the new Europe we want. Better, in terms of better, we mean closer to people, meaning that subsidiarity principle needs to be applied to the utmost possible level. We need to be better focused on very, very important essential issues for the Union. We have to be more efficient in terms of smarter or lesser regulation, and the Europe which is focused on growth and jobs by being globally more competitive. We certainly see European future also as an inclusive future. By this I mean, again, enlargement to new member states. The last sentence observation I would like to make is that the future of Europe will really depend very much on the confidence of its citizens, which has been lost. This was obvious by a number of indicators, and without rebuilding this confidence, it will be almost impossible to think of a better Europe for tomorrow. How to do this? Probably we will have some indications of possible answers after today's discussions, but simply we have to change the perception of Europe. I would like to remind all of us, and I repeat this very often, of two things. Professor Weiler mentioned the history of the European Union was in the first days of political nature, so to create preconditions for long-lasting peace. Then we somehow shifted towards economic monetary union, and this ideological and political dimension was kind of lost. Obviously, economy and monetary issues are not enough. So probably the future will lead either towards more integration, again, of kind of political union, or disintegration. I prefer to think of the first scenario. I will quote Petar Preradović, who said a long time ago that only change is a constant in this world. So we should be trying to use these changes to our own benefit. And I will just like to finally refer to one more thing, which also was said by Professor Weiler, that terrible catastrophes are triggered by seemingly irrelevant small events. But I believe that also big leaps, evolutionary leaps, are also triggered by such small events. So I think that our conference will be this small event in a big leap forward for everybody.
Thank you so much, Rafael, So I'll try to be as loud as I can using my natural voice, which is you probably better. Well, let's have the mic once again. So thank you, Hervé, for outlining actually how long the way from the beginning until the end is, and how endless actually the process is. I mean, Croatia has joined, but the process of adaptation, of adjustment, and of creating really a kind of environment where the mentality has fundamentally changed when we arrive at the end is really an ongoing process, and we could even say that some old member states or some bit newer older states like Hungary, Bulgaria, Romania are still in the middle of changing, and some of them, looking at Hungary, are even changing towards a completely different direction. So we have to be aware that there is no perfect end, but there is only a perfect or a constant struggle. And I like this Red Bull metaphor. I mean, Croatia has become a lot of a Red Bull in the last few years right now, and you know, when you consume Red Bull, you have a peak of energy, and then it goes down, and then you need a new Red Bull. And if you stop giving Red Bull, you are kind of, very, very, I would say, tired in the end. So the question is how to come. That goes for Croatia, and that goes actually for the European Union in general. How to come to a situation where you don't need Red Bull anymore in order to function properly. This is kind of a dilemma in many European countries. Having a lot of Red Bull recently, we need to come back to a normalcy, and normalcy is quite difficult without Red Bull. So in any sense, we will move on to Snježana Prijica-Maržija, University of Rijeka and CAS. And she is, we had a kind of a general, quite strong jump into the debates, then particular aspect focusing on media, then the focus on transformative power of Europe. And Snježana is going, in a sense, to translate it into the context of a possible European interdisciplinary study. She is going to be as concrete as possible, so that we have a kind of a bridge between ideas, certain aspects, and then a kind of an outcome of implementation within the European interdisciplinary studies as a general idea of sharing knowledge of Europe. So Snježana, thank you so much, and the floor is yours.
Whether that you can hear me. So actually I will refer in my presentation on the first part of the title of this first panel, actually, European Interdisciplinary Studies. So after these great insights and the more general issues about Europe and the world, actually I will focus on our idea, which is actually very important for us, crucially important for us. So it's our idea about our European interdisciplinary studies. So I would like to present to you our main ideas concerning our European interdisciplinary study as a kind of platform or foundation for the future debating today and not only future but today and tomorrow. So actually I try to see what the other people, what the other universities actually do at their European studies. So I based my presentation on kind of comparative analysis. I take into account, it seems to me, the very, very important institutions, College of Europe, University of Oxford, French, German, Austrian, Italian, and the other institution actually that deals with the European studies. What are European studies? Just to clarify the main idea of the European studies. So the European studies deal with the economic, political, legal, and cultural aspects of relationship in the European Union, aiming to achieve more holistic perspective on political system and its underlying social processes. I will skip some point because we are short in time. So, who founded European studies and why European studies are actually founded? So, founders can be governments, what is actually the case in the University of Bonn, German Federal Foreign Office. It could be member states of European communities. For instance, European University Institute Florence was founded by member states of European community. It can be founded by national and European institutions. For instance, Catholic University Louvain was founded by a European desk of Belgian Italian Chamber of Commerce. It could be founded by leading European figures, which is actually the case in the College of Europe, between other figures of Winston Churchill. Also, it can be founded by colleges, universities, institutes. With mission, what is the mission and what is the vision of the European studies? Mission, obviously, generally, actually, is the promotion of the spirit of solidarity, integration, intercultural, and mutual understanding between European countries. What is the vision of European studies generally, and of course our, to develop knowledge, competencies, and skills for successful functioning in transnational arenas. There are obviously diversities. There are differences between different European studies. European studies actually, we can find European studies at all of the Bologna cycles. Bachelor, master, PhD studies, lifelong learning education, postdoctoral programs. It could be possible to gain different number of ECTS credits, 60, 120, 180. It could be organized as a full-time studies or part-time studies, semestral or modular. Also, European studies can be university and professional study programs with or without final research thesis, international and national. But the blue here is point and the bold actually what is the European studies most often, at the universities and colleges. But it's very, very interesting for me is actually diversities in focus. It seems to me that all European studies can be divided into three main groups. First is general European studies. It is actually programs that usually focus on the combination of political science, EU public policy, European law, and economics. And European studies in this region actually mostly is general European studies. Also, we have specialized European studies programs focused on specific subjects. For instance, MA in administration and diplomacy, we will actually hear about that just an hour later. MA in European Archaeology, MA in European Literature, and actually University of Oxford, College of Europe, and actually University of Rijeka has specialized European studies at our faculty of law. But the third and the most interesting for us is interdisciplinary European studies. It's actually programs with broader curriculums including a wide spectrum of disciplines in humanities and social sciences. For instance, philosophy, history, law, economics, anthropology, cultural studies, etc. So, what is our aim? What is our main ideas? So, we share definitely our mission and our vision with other European studies in Europe. So, European International Studies in Rijeka will offer an excellent learning environment in which lecturers and students from various Southeast Europe, Western Balkan, as well from other European and non-European countries can exchange and share their perspectives, aiming to develop European culture-based competences. We all agree that we have a kind of deficit in this kind of competences. To create a better understanding of European international issues and to support stability, solidarity, and intercultural understanding. For whom, from whom, for whom? Our European studies will be founded by University of Rijeka, Ministry of Foreign and European Affairs and the Center for Advanced Studies, Southeast Europe, for students with a broad interest in the cultural, historical, political, economical, and social aspects of Europe. And what is actually crucial, and with interest in ongoing integration process with emphasizing Southeast Europe. We would like that our European studies, be international, interdisciplinary, professional study program. Students can attain advanced master degree, but I will say something about that later. This advanced master degree will be composed of independently accredited and certified lifelong learning programs, and it will be modular and part-time for part-time students. Actually, we would like that our studies will be non-classical and more flexible. Actually, Professor Busek suggested it to us because we tried to debate the main ideas about our European students previously with our board of patrons, board of trustees, etc., and actually they suggested to us that we need to be more flexible, more non-classical, let us say. So it will be advanced master. So the student can attain advanced master degree in European interdisciplinary studies, but this advanced master degree can be attained by accumulating 50 credits through lifelong learning modules per 10 ECTS credits, and that plus research. So we actually follow this model of accumulation and transfer of ECTS credits. What modules, what lifelong learning programs actually we plan to have at our European interdisciplinary studies? 5 modules. The first, governance and regulation. Second, financing and budgeting. Third, international relations. 4, social policies. And 5, European culture. After each of these lifelong learning programs, the student can attain certificate of advanced European studies in, for instance, governance and regulation or European culture. I put here, the topics, the learning outcomes, the issues in specific modules. So when we talk about the module governance and regulation, here I put actually the possible courses there. I will not, of course, read all of them, but you can briefly, get a picture. For instance, in the model governance and regulation, we would like to talk about the governance in the EU, historic evolution and political system. about European regulatory governance, interinstitutional bargaining and multi-level decision-making in the EU, and many, many other issues. The second module, financing and budgeting, also very important topics for us as European and international economic policies, political economy and European integration, regulatory aspects of global economy, design and management of EU projects, EU fiscal federalism, etc. The third module, international relations, for instance, topics such as EU foreign policy, conflict of aims between national and EU interests, EU and the transformation of its neighborhood, geopolitics, and the other issues. Social policies, very important issues from the philosophy, sociology, anthropology, and the other, democracy, legitimacy, and public opinion, capitalism or capital in the 21st century, social inequality, European citizenship, public policies and media, education, research, and innovation policies, and many others. And finally, on the fifth module, European culture. So the question from the cultural studies and the other disciplines, culture in Europe, European languages, European history, civilization, history and politics of Central and Eastern Europe, and many other issues. And many, many other issues, actually modules can also cover a number of current issues of major concern to us, for instance, climate changes, new authoritarian challenges, widening north-south divide in the EU and the other, aging of the EU population, and many other actual and urgent questions. We would like to think about our European studies are horizontally and vertically flexible. I would not enter in these details because actually we are short, we can discuss it later. Professor Magagnotti actually stressed the idea of the faculty at these European International Studies, and we really hope that our faculty here at the studies will be the composition of international scholars, scientists, high-level European, international, national, regional officials, and other policymakers. Namely, we would like to gather here scholars and practitioners. So it seems to us that this could be, the promising and the fruitful combination. Financing, actually, model combination of tuition fee and the scholarship model. So we would like to offer also our European International Studies Scholarship. The program itself will offer a number of scholarships that take the form of reduced tuition fee. Of course, other scholarships and fellowships as possible. Why opt for European International Studies in Rijeka? So I would like to mention only some advantages. I think it's very important for us. First, University of Rijeka has certificate of developed quality assurance system. So it guarantees a kind of academic rigor. We are the only university in Croatia who actually get, it seems to me not Dubrovnik also, who get this certificate. Also, very important, we would like to have here distinguished international lecturer, and of course very important for us, interdisciplinary approach. We think that our main advantage is flexible model of study, career opportunities in this wider sense, new campus. We plan to have some special offers for our students, patronage model and mobility. I will skip it because we are sure for that. So why opt for the University of Rijeka? Why opt for our European International Studies? Just a few pictures at the end. So Rijeka is one of the biggest ports. Port is a symbol of multiculturalism and tolerance, and Rijeka is actually the symbol of these values here in Ukraine, in this region. I don't know, Hurley mentioned before, we have the great industrial heritage, we invented torpedo here in Rijeka. Rijeka has nightlife and also, beautiful surroundings, our marvelous market here. Rijeka lives by the seaside, so port, but we live also from the sea. This is our marvelous fish market. Variety of unique happenings at the sea, beaches, clear waters, but also we have 20 kilometers from Rijeka, mountains, Gorski Kotar, lakes, beautiful Opatija, 10 kilometers from Rijeka, touristic place, marvelous gardens, marvelous architecture, contemporary, modernism, classical, count car architecture, cultural events here in Rijeka, marvelous university campus, colleges around Rijeka, in IKA, student day festival, so we have a very important and active student body, food, quite shrimps, Mediterranean food. Thank you very much.